A woman sits in a windowless room in Tehran. Her wrists are bound with plastic ties. Her children, a boy of 9 and a girl of 6, huddle against her in the darkness. Somewhere above them, revolutionary guards are preparing an execution chamber. She knows her husband is already dead, shot in a basement 3 days ago for passing nuclear secrets to the enemy. Now they will kill her and the children too, to send a message that treason destroys entire bloodlines. She has 48 hours to live. What she doesn't know is that 6,000 kilometers away, a team of Mossad operatives is already in motion. They have 72 hours to penetrate the most surveilled city on Earth, extract 3 civilians from a fortified compound, and disappear before Iran's intelligence apparatus realizes what has happened. This is the story of Operation Nightfall, the mission that never officially existed, executed by ghosts who left no trace, and remembered only in classified files that will remain sealed for another 50 years. The call came at 03:47 on a Tuesday morning. David Koren was asleep in his apartment in Herzliya when the encrypted phone beside his bed began vibrating. He answered without speaking, listening to the series of tones that indicated priority red. 17 minutes later, he was in an underground conference room at Mossad headquarters, staring at 3 photographs pinned to a corkboard. A woman, a boy, a girl. Their names were Layla, Omid, and Sarah Hosseini. Farhad Hosseini was one of our most valuable assets inside Iran's nuclear program, the briefing officer explained. His voice carried the clinical detachment of someone accustomed to discussing human lives as operational variables. Senior physicist at the Fordo enrichment facility. For 6 years, he provided intelligence on centrifuge development, uranium stockpiles, and weapons design progress. 3 days ago, Vivek arrested him at his laboratory. We intercepted communications confirming his execution occurred within hours. Koren studied the woman's face. Dark eyes, sharp features, the kind of beauty that suggested both strength and suffering. 41 years old. Former professor of literature at Tehran University, until her husband's work required her to disappear from public life. The children looked like her, the same serious eyes, the same hint of defiance in their expressions. The family? Taken to a Vivek detention facility in northern Tehran. Our sources indicate they will be executed within 72 hours. The regime wants to make an example. Families of traitors share the traitor's fate. Koren had run extractions before. Agents compromised in hostile territory, assets whose cover had been blown, foreign nationals caught in situations requiring quiet rescue. But those operations involved adults who understood the risks. This was different. A woman who had never been trained for anything like this. Children who would be terrified, unpredictable, potentially loud at exactly the wrong moment. Why us? He asked. Why not leave it to the Kurds or MEK contacts inside Iran? They have networks we don't. The briefing officer's expression didn't change. Because Layla Hosseini knows things. Her husband talked to her. Not everything, but enough. If Vivek breaks her before execution, if she reveals what her husband told her about our other assets inside the program, he let the implication hang in the air. This isn't just a rescue mission. It's damage control. We get them out or we ensure they can't talk. Those are the only acceptable outcomes. The words settled over the room like a cold blanket. Koren understood. If extraction failed, if escape became impossible, the mission parameters included a contingency no one wanted to speak aloud. 3 people would die either way. The only question was who pulled the trigger. I'll need to see the facility plans, Koren said. Everything we have on guard rotations, surveillance coverage, entry points, and I want to choose my own team. But what Koren didn't know yet was that someone inside Mossad had already betrayed the operation before it began. Assembling the team took less than 6 hours. Koren selected 5 operatives from Kidon, Mossad's most elite special operations unit. Each had conducted missions inside hostile territories. Each understood that capture meant torture and death, that no rescue would come if things went wrong. Yael Mizrahi was the first he called. 34 years old, former IDF Special Forces, fluent in Farsi with an accent that could pass for Tehrani. She had spent 18 months undercover in Syria before the civil war made extraction necessary. Her specialty was close protection, keeping people alive when everything around them was trying to kill them. Avi Brenner handled technical operations. 41. Heavyset, unremarkable in appearance, which made him perfect for the work he did. He could defeat any electronic lock manufactured in the last 20 years, bypass alarm systems, clone access cards, and disappear surveillance footage like it had never existed. The muscle came from twins, Michael and Daniel Levi. 29 years old, built like professional fighters, trained in Krav Maga since childhood. They communicated without speaking, anticipating each other's movements through some connection that transcended normal awareness. In close quarters combat, they operated as a single, lethal organism. The final team member was Rami Ashkenazi. 63 years old, past the age when most operatives retired. But Rami possessed something no younger agent could match: 30 years of experience running networks inside Iran. He knew Tehran's streets the way a surgeon knows anatomy, every alley, every checkpoint, every building where a fugitive might hide. They gathered in a safe house south of Tel Aviv. Maps covered every wall. Photographs of the detention facility were pinned in clusters. A scale model of the compound occupied the center table. The facility is a converted textile factory in the Sharake Garb district, Koren began. 3 stories above ground, 2 below. The prisoners are being held in the second basement level. 1 stairwell access, 1 elevator shaft, both monitored by cameras and guarded at all times. Exterior walls are reinforced concrete. Windows are narrow and barred. The perimeter is patrolled by Revolutionary Guards on 4-hour rotations. How many guards total? Michael asked. 30 to 40 during day shifts, 20 to 25 at night. VVAC interrogators work irregular hours. Yael studied the model. Entry options? Limited. The main gate is obviously impossible. Service entrance on the north side is reinforced and alarmed. The roof has access points, but surveillance coverage is comprehensive. So we go through the front door, Rami said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Not literally, but we make them open the door for us. We become something they expect to see. A delivery, an inspection, a transfer of prisoners. Koren nodded slowly. This was why he'd wanted Rami on the team. The old man thought differently. VVAC conducts prisoner transfers regularly, Rami continued. If we can obtain the correct documentation, the correct vehicle, the correct uniforms, we walk in as authorized personnel and walk out with the prisoners. No forced entry, no firefight. Clean. And if the documentation doesn't hold up? Avi asked. Then we improvise, Koren said. But deception gives us the best chance of getting everyone out alive. We go in quiet, stay quiet, leave quiet. Weapons are last resort only. The planning continued for 18 hours. They mapped every contingency, every possible failure point. They memorized guard schedules, studied facial recognition algorithms used by Iranian surveillance systems, practiced the Farsi phrases they might need. They slept in shifts, 4 hours maximum. The operation would launch in 48 hours. Insertion via commercial flights through Istanbul and Dubai, traveling under separate covers, converging in Tehran through different entry points. Everything depended on precision. Everything depended on nothing going wrong. But something had already gone wrong, and the team was walking into a trap. Layla Hosseini had stopped counting the hours. Time moved differently in the basement, where artificial light never changed and silence was broken only by occasional screams from distant cells. She held her children close, feeling their small bodies trembling against her, and whispered stories to keep them calm. Stories their father used to tell. Stories about brave people who faced impossible situations and survived. She knew they would not survive. She had seen the way the guards looked at her. The combination of contempt and anticipation that signaled her fate had already been decided. They had questioned her repeatedly about her husband's contacts, his communications, his secrets. She had told them nothing, not because she was brave, but because she genuinely knew almost nothing. Farad had protected her by keeping her ignorant. His love had been expressed through silence. But the interrogators didn't believe her. They would continue asking questions until they were satisfied, or until orders came to end the interrogation permanently. "Mama," Omid whispered. "Will someone come for us?" She stroked his hair, feeling the familiar texture beneath her fingers, memorizing it. "I don't know, my love, but we must be brave, whatever happens. Your father was brave. We must be brave like him." Sarah, the younger one, had stopped speaking entirely since their arrest. She simply clung to her mother, eyes wide and unblinking, retreating into some interior space where the horror couldn't reach her. Layla worried about what this silence meant, what damage was being done to her daughter's mind that might never heal. The door opened. A guard entered carrying a tray with 3 bowls of rice. He set it on the floor without looking at them, then left. The lock clicked behind him. Layla divided the rice carefully, making sure the children received larger portions. She watched them eat, these 2 small people she had created and raised, and loved more than her own existence. The first sign of trouble came 12 hours before insertion. Koren was reviewing final documentation in the Istanbul safe house when his encrypted phone buzzed with an incoming message. The sender code indicated headquarters. The content made his blood run cold. Possible compromise. Source Lambda reports. Vivek aware of pending operation. Cannot confirm details leaked. Abort option available. Your call. He read the message 3 times, then deleted it according to protocol. Around him, the team continued their preparations, unaware that everything had potentially changed. A leak. Someone had talked. The question was how much Vivek knew and where the information had come from. Koren considered his options. Aborting the mission meant leaving 3 people to die, including 2 children who had committed no crime except being born to the wrong father. It meant accepting that Mossad couldn't protect its assets, but proceeding meant walking into unknown danger. If Vivek expected them, the facility would be reinforced. The deception that formed the core of their plan might fail immediately. His entire team could be killed or captured. He thought about Layla Hosseini, sitting in that basement with her children, waiting for death. "We proceed," he said quietly. No one asked why he was speaking to himself, but he made one modification to the plan. A contingency within the contingency. Something that might save them if everything else failed. The thing about traps is that sometimes the hunted can sense them before they spring. Tehran materialized beneath the aircraft like a sprawling organism of lights and shadows. 14 million people packed into a metropolitan area that had grown far beyond its infrastructure's capacity. Koren cleared immigration using a German passport identifying him as a hydraulic engineer visiting to consult on dam construction. His Farsi was limited to pleasantries, but Germans weren't expected to speak the language. The immigration officer stamped his passport without questions. The team assembled over the following 6 hours, arriving through different terminals, staying at different hotels, following different cover stories. They communicated through dead drops and prearranged signals, never meeting in groups, never acknowledging each other in public. At 22 Skitter local time, they converged at a warehouse in the industrial district east of the detention facility. Rami had arranged it through contacts cultivated over decades. The vehicles waited inside, a prisoner transport van with authentic markings and a backup sedan positioned for emergency extraction. They changed into Revolutionary Guard uniforms, checking each detail against reference photographs. Insignia placement, belt positioning, weapon holsters, the particular way Iranian security forces wore their berets. Everything had to be perfect. A single misplaced element could trigger suspicion. "Comms check," Avi announced. Each team member touched their concealed earpiece and spoke their call sign. Koren looked at his team. 5 people who had trained their entire adult lives for moments like this. 5 people who trusted him to bring them home alive. We all know the plan. We all know the contingencies. If something goes wrong, we adapt and overcome. Let's bring them home. The van's engine rumbled to life. They pulled out into traffic, joining the flow of vehicles moving through Tehran's midnight streets. The detention facility was 12 minutes away. 11 minutes into the drive, Koren noticed the motorcycle. It had appeared 2 blocks behind them, maintaining consistent distance through 3 turns. Coincidence was possible. Tehran had thousands of motorcycles, but the rider's body language was wrong. He wasn't weaving through traffic like a civilian. He was tracking. "We have a tail," Koren said quietly. "Single motorcycle, 200 meters back. Confirm when you can." Yael adjusted the side mirror. Confirmed. He's not trying to hide, which means he's not alone. Corin scanned the surrounding traffic. The sedan 3 cars ahead had been there since they left the warehouse district. The truck that had passed them twice was now visible in the distance. The trap was closing. Abort? Michael asked. Corin calculated distances, timing, variables. The facility was 7 minutes away. If they broke off now, they would lose the opportunity entirely. The prisoners would be moved or killed before another attempt could be organized, but if they continued into an ambush, they would all die, unless he used the contingency. New plan, he said. We're not aborting, we're accelerating. He explained quickly, watching his team's expressions shift from confusion to understanding to grim acceptance. It was insane. It violated every principle of operational security. But it might be the only way any of them survived the next hour. The van turned down a side street, heading not toward the detention facility but away from it, toward the one place in Tehran where their pursuers would not expect them to go. Sometimes the only way out of a trap is straight through the jaws. The Revolutionary Guard checkpoint at Sharakagab's northern perimeter was manned by 4 soldiers, 2 of them visibly bored. They barely glanced at the prisoner transport van as it approached. Corin rolled down the window and handed over the documentation Rami had prepared. Transfer orders for 3 prisoners, authorized by a colonel whose signature had been forged from samples collected through months of intelligence work. Late transfer, the guard observed. Interrogators want them at the secondary facility by dawn, Corin replied. His accent was flawless. You know how it is. They never think about who has to drive. The guard grunted in agreement and waved them through. Behind them, the surveillance vehicles had vanished, unable to follow into a restricted zone without revealing themselves. Corin had bought them time, but not much. He turned the van down a narrow alley, stopping beside a building whose basement connected through service tunnels to the detention facility's infrastructure. Cold War-era tunnels that most people had forgotten existed. The team dismounted quickly. They moved through a maintenance entrance, down stairs that smelled of mold and disuse, into darkness that their night vision equipment transformed into green clarity. Tunnel access is 50 meters northeast, Rami said. It should emerge near the detention facility's generator room. Should emerge? Daniel asked. It's been 30 years since anyone used these tunnels. Things may have changed. They moved in tactical formation. The tunnel entrance was hidden behind a collapsed shelving unit. One by one, they squeezed through into a corridor barely wide enough for their shoulders. The tunnel extended into darkness. Water dripped from cracks in the ceiling. After 300 meters, they reached a steel door coated in rust. Avi examined the lock. 30 seconds. The door groaned as Michael pushed it inward, revealing a generator room filled with humming machinery. They had arrived. They were inside the most secure detention facility in Tehran. Now they had to find 3 people and get them out before anyone realized intruders were in the building. The guard station at the stairwell entrance housed 3 Revolutionary Guards and 1 VVAC officer. They looked up as the group approached, hands instinctively moving toward weapons before registering the uniforms and the documentation folder. Colonel, Mohammadi's orders, Corin announced, handing over the forged papers. The Hosseini prisoners are being moved to Site 14 for specialized interrogation. The VVAC officer frowned. I wasn't informed of any transfer tonight. The colonel doesn't consult with detention staff about operational decisions. Verify with his office if you need to, but explain the delay yourself when he asks why his prisoners weren't delivered on schedule. The officer hesitated. Calling headquarters to verify would be proper procedure, but it would also draw attention to his uncertainty. Which cells? He asked finally. B-24 through B-26, the woman and 2 children. The officer consulted a logbook. They're in B-24 together. Sergeant Abbas will escort you down. Abbas led them through a security door into a corridor lined with heavy steel doors. The smell was distinctive. Human confinement, fear, desperation, inadequate sanitation. B-24, Abbas said. You want me to wait? We'll handle it from here. Return to your station. The sergeant retreated. Corin waited until silence returned, then nodded to Avi. The lock yielded in seconds. The door swung open. The room was small. A woman sat against the far wall, 2 children pressed against her sides. She looked up as light from the corridor fell across her face, and Corin saw terror transform into confusion, and then something he hadn't expected. Recognition. "You're them," Layla whispered. "Farhad said if something happened, people would come." I didn't believe him. "We're getting you out," Corin said quietly. "Right now. You need to do exactly what we say without questions. Can you do that?" She nodded. The boys stared at the operatives with wide eyes. The girl hadn't reacted at all, her gaze fixed on something invisible. "The children, can they walk quietly?" "Omid can. Sarah." Layla's voice caught. "Sarah hasn't spoken since we were arrested. I don't know what she'll do." Corin knelt beside the little girl. "Sarah, we're going to take you somewhere safe. Somewhere with sunlight and food. But you have to be very quiet, like a mouse hiding from a cat. Can you be quiet for me?" Something shifted in her eyes. She nodded once, barely perceptibly. They moved out. Yael guided Layla. Michael carried Sarah. Daniel walked beside Omid. The stairwell was empty. The generator room lay ahead, and beyond it, the tunnel, the warehouse, the vehicle that would carry them to the border. They were going to make it. Against all odds, they were going to make it. And then the alarms began. The sound was deafening. Klaxons screaming from speakers throughout the facility, accompanied by flashing red lights. Somewhere above, boots thundered against concrete as guards mobilized. "Move!" Corin ordered. They abandoned stealth for speed, running through the generator room, into the tunnel entrance, pulling the door shut behind them. The tunnel was dark, their night vision casting everything in shades of green, as they navigated debris and water. Behind them, voices echoed. The pursuit had begun. "They know about the tunnel," Yael said. "If they seal both ends, we're trapped. Then we reach the other end before they do." They ran. Layla stumbled, caught herself, kept moving. Omid's breathing became ragged, but he didn't complain. Water rose around their ankles, then their knees. Sarah began to whimper, the first sound she had made since her father's arrest, and Michael held her tighter. Light appeared ahead. The tunnel exit, the maintenance basement, freedom so close they could almost touch it. They emerged, climbed the stairs, pushed into the alley where their van waited. The street was empty. "Vehicle now!" The team piled in. Tehran's streets blurred past. Corin drove aggressively, taking turns at speed, putting distance between them and the detention facility. The sirens multiplied. 20 minutes to the border, Avi reported. "Helicopter is standing by." 20 minutes. An eternity in operational time. Their luck did not hold. The checkpoint appeared around a curve in the mountain road. 6 vehicles, 24 soldiers, portable barriers blocking both lanes. There was no way around. Corin stopped. A Revolutionary Guard officer approached. His expression suggested he knew exactly what he was looking for. "Out of the vehicle, all of you, now!" They complied. Soldiers surrounded them, weapons aimed, shouting commands. The officer walked along the line of kneeling prisoners. He stopped before Corin. "David Corin, we've been waiting for you. Your reputation precedes you." Someone had betrayed them. Someone who knew the mission parameters, the extraction route, the timing. Someone inside Mossad itself. "The civilians have no intelligence value," Corin said. "They're children and a woman who knows nothing. Let them go. You have us. The civilians are why you came. Their value is precisely that. They bring us people like you." The officer gestured to his soldiers. "Take them to the secondary facility." In the history of covert operations, there are moments when everything changes, when the mathematics of impossible odds somehow resolve in ways no one predicted. This was one of those moments. The first explosion came from the mountain above the checkpoint, a thunderclap of fire and rock that sent debris cascading across the road. The soldiers scattered, training directing them toward cover. The second explosion destroyed 2 vehicles. The third targeted the portable barriers, obliterating the obstacles. In the chaos, Corin moved. His bound hands were not bound. The ties had been modified, designed to appear secure while remaining easily released. He came off his knees with a weapon already in his hands, acquired from a soldier too slow to react, and began firing with mechanical precision. Around him, his team transformed from prisoners to predators. Yael disarmed 2 soldiers. The Levi twins moved through the confusion like dancers. Avi jammed communications, cutting the checkpoint off from reinforcement calls. Rami was pulling the family toward the van, shielding them with his body. 30 seconds. That was how long it took to transform the checkpoint from a trap into a breakthrough. The van was moving before the doors fully closed. Corin drove through the wreckage, accelerating up the mountain road while explosions continued behind them, the charges he had planted during their approach continuing their programmed detonations. The contingency. The modification he had made after learning of the potential compromise. He had expected betrayal, planned for it, transformed their capture into an opportunity to eliminate the checkpoint that would otherwise have blocked their escape. Border in 6 minutes. 6 minutes. The longest 6 minutes of Corin's life, driving at dangerous speeds through mountain curves, watching for additional checkpoints. The border appeared as a line on a map, invisible on the ground but real in every way that mattered. They crossed it at 0447, entering Iraqi airspace controlled by American forces. The helicopter waited 300 meters from the border. They abandoned the van and ran. Rotors thundered. The helicopter rose. Tehran's lights glittered in the distance. 6 months later, in a safe house in Israel, Layla Hosseini sat across a table from David Corin. The children were elsewhere, receiving therapy for trauma that would take years to process. "There's something I need to know," she said. "Farhad told me there was someone inside your organization who was working against you, someone who had been selling information to Iran for years. Why are you telling me this? Because whoever it was, they almost got my children killed. They almost got your people killed. And I think you know who it is, but you haven't acted because you're not certain. What makes you think I know?" "Because Farhad knew. And Farhad told me to give you something if I ever met you." She reached into her pocket and produced a small piece of paper, folded many times. "He hid it where even Vivek couldn't find it. He said you would understand what it meant." Corin took the paper and unfolded it. A name was written there, a name he recognized. A name that explained months of compromised operations, failed missions, assets lost in circumstances that never quite made sense. The leak, the traitor, someone he had trusted. "Find them," Layla said. "Make sure no other family goes through what mine did." He nodded once, then walked out into the Mediterranean sunlight. The paper remained in his pocket, evidence that would be acted upon quietly, without official acknowledgement, in the shadows where such matters were resolved. The story of Operation Nightfall was officially over, but another operation was about to begin. If this investigation into the invisible world of intelligence operations fascinated you, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss when we expose the missions that governments deny. Drop a like if this deep dive into espionage and survival was worth your time. And here's your question for the comments. In a world where loyalty is currency and betrayal is always possible, how do intelligence agencies protect themselves from enemies within? Is there any system that can truly prevent catastrophic leaks? Let us know what you think. The next classified file is already being prepared. See you in the next investigation.